Good day. So excited to be back on the Self-Care Diaries. My gosh, it's been such a long time since I've interviewed anybody for the channel. And yeah, I just felt it was time. It was time to come back. And our maiden interview for 2022. It's such a pleasure to have Shima with us, sky dancer, Dakini, Shima, powerhouse with such beautiful names. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Self-Care Diaries. And thank you for putting your hand up and saying, hey, I'm willing to speak about dating and trauma and sacred sexuality. Welcome.
Lee, thank you so much. And I've just met you for the first time, and I'm really enjoying meeting you already and feeling your salty, grounded wisdom and insight and awareness come through. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Amazing. Thank you, thank you. Shima, you've got these beautiful names, and I'd love to give our listeners some context into Dakini and that lineage, and I'm in the offline you were speaking about sky dancer being the English translation to Dakini. I believe in the power of names. I believe that there's an energy and a magnetism that happens with our names. So I'd tell us a little bit more about your names and where you got them from.
Sure. So yeah, as you said, Sky Dancer is one of the translations of Dakini. It comes from the Tibetan lineage, Buddhist lineage actually. I didn't get it from them, but I was working with a tantric guru for a long time, and he gave me the name, or he gave me this. It's not really a name; it's a title of Dakini. And it refers to a woman who's working with supporting other people on the path into awakening. And it connects to a spiritual lineage of the feminine, of the awakened feminine energies that come and support and help this love song into the world. It includes sexuality. Tantra and Dakini very much includes sexuality as part of the ground of our being and the fuel that will rise us into the expansion of being. And it very much includes the dance into and the true awareness. What is true feminine? Not an idea or what our culture says is feminine, and masculine as well. And of course that meeting, which is that union, that sacred union, the pivotal point where all creation comes from. So there's complexities in it, and it's extraordinarily simple. Sky dancer, if you just look at the word sky dancer, the sky refers to the empty mind. When your mind is empty, your body releases defenses. When our body's defenses are down, or we're not in defense against the moment anymore, energy rises in our bodies, and we can then dance, whether it's feeling the energy just rippling through us, and that's it's also a reference to a particular love-making posture, sky dancing, where the woman is on top of the man, his energy rises through her and she dances because she has no mind protection against the moment. If she has to have a real protection, it will be there, but not the confused and false ones. Or it could just be the dancing, however that unfolds, whatever your love story looks like in the moment.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So let's speak about dating and what's happening in the dating world, locally, internationally. I think COVID came, and firstly, for my viewers that aren't aware, I'm going through a divorce. I've been married for 10 years, and I've been together with my husband for 13 years. This is my second divorce, and some people I know are going, oh my God, she failed twice. And I'm like, no, well, actually I was blessed enough to love and be loved twice, that we walked down the aisle looking to create a new love story. So I'm in the process of grieving at the end of that love story, and creating this new business where I'm sharing my research and my wisdom and my knowledge around how to date and how to put ourselves out there authentically. And so I've invited a variety of different people to come and speak to me about dating on this channel. And Shima, you showed the first interest in speaking about dating, and offline you mentioned how things might be a bit different here in South Africa than they are globally. What is your experience?
So I feel my entire life, especially my adult life, I mean, even when I was a child, I was very curious about sexuality and about the life between men and women. And I sense my life as being a offering to that exploration. So I've been in the dating world, but probably differently to other people maybe, but always with that eye of what are the wounds of people, what happens in dating, so from a kind of researcher viewpoint. And then I've traveled in the world, I've taught in Europe and I've taught in the US. And then when I'm there, I often have, if I'm fortunate, I have engagement with maybe I would have a partner or a boyfriend or something like that in the country I'm visiting. It's happened, so I can then go, wow, the way of men in, let's say, in Sweden is profoundly different to here. I was at a Tantra festival in Ängsbacka in Sweden. It was beautiful, very beautiful. And I was watching how men and women relate in Sweden. It's quite a matriarchal community in Sweden, by the way. And I actually started to cry because it was so beautiful. I had never witnessed that before in my life. The way the men receive women there, the way they listen to each other, the way they work through things. It was just, and I'm not saying it's perfect, and I also saw imperfection, or not imperfection, I saw, challenges and so forth. But some of what I witnessed, just, it broke my heart open. And I've never seen anything like that here. And not to say there isn't beauty here, but it's so vastly different dimension. It really was. So there's lots to say. I'm just curious if you have a response first, and then we can go deeper.
So I guess the culture has a very big impact on how we date, right? I mean, just in South Africa, we're not called the Rainbow Nation for nothing. We've got a number of different cultures. And even within the African context, the Black Africans, they're different cultures, like the Zulus and Xhosas and Vendas and Sutus. They're different in some certain circumstances, different. In the white population, you've got the Afrikaner, you've got the English, you've got the mixed, Afrikaner English, then you've got the internationals, the French, So in our country, we've got this melting pot of different cultures, and from a political standpoint, we're really struggling to find our feet. So I can only imagine in the dating game, it's going to be just as, wobbly, if I can put it that way. And I love the work that you're doing, because I think that we can, sacred sexuality and bringing in the power of the feminine to heal the wounds of the patriarchal system kind of helps us to look past culture, acknowledge culture, but look past it in a way and saying, I honor you as both a masculine and feminine energy, understanding that you come from the influence of a certain culture. But if we can drop down into the truth and wisdom of who we are at an energetic level, we can meet each other in a different way.
Sure. There's a lot there that you said. Just wondering where to pick it up. I certainly feel that one of the, as you say, the culture is a very, very particular, powerful influence on how we relate to each other in love relations, in sexual relations. And maybe one should come into the South African context because of our background with apartheid, which was it used narrow conservatism to keep us all small, to bring the dialogue and the narrative of apartheid in. When our sexuality is small and controlled, we become more controllable. Of course, we also come from the legacy where our government made it illegal who we could have sex with. So they were that controlling of our lovemaking, of our bedroom. And we just didn't even question it. And, we never even, mostly, some people did, and some people got arrested for questioning it and so forth. But for the vast majority of South Africans, that was what we just lived by for a long time. And I can still very much see it, that aspect weaving through our culture. But that's a whole nother story. But where I'm coming from is that we've come from a very conservative background in our sexuality. And I think it's still very prevalent. And I feel the patriarchal culture in terms of sexuality is still very prevalent and creates quite profound challenges when we start to try and meet someone. As a woman coming into a power who embraces her sexuality, and what I get met with in that way in the world, or any woman who's coming from that place. So, but not in the world, in the South African world. Yeah, I think it's nice to keep it local right now.
It's interesting. I was speaking to a friend of mine, and we were speaking about the dating apps and how I'd been frustrated because I was able to say what I preferred from a dating experience, from a race point of view, and because I'd had that preference, I was labeled as racist. And I was like, well, like, if somebody's gay and they don't want to be with a straight person, we don't anymore say, oh, your preference is shit, you're but somehow but if I don't want to hang with an Indian guy for whatever the reasons may be, there can sometimes be a sense of, actually, you're being racist. And I'm like, well, I don't know, it's about preference. So I think and I mean, in myself, I'm like, okay, the preference. And then as a conscious being, I'm like, well, what is the preference about? Is it about, do I have biases? Am I being racist? Am I being, is it masking? Am I masking my preference, saying it's a preference, but actually it's a deep wound around being controlled about who I may make love to? So I think this dating conversation is, I mean, we can go to the outer cosmic layers of what it means to date in today's world. And I wonder how, and I'm sure you and I are going to have lots of different conversations around this. And I just think what is sacred sexuality? What does that mean? What does sacred sexuality mean in the dating environment?
Well, you've brought in two strong topics now. What is sacred sexuality? And then also the one of a preference around the color of someone's skin, And I think that is a deep question. And in my tantric groups, I'm always very delighted when people from different races come to join the group and we get to work with sexuality together. What does that mean? You work with sexuality in a group with me. It can mean there are many different things, but on the beginning levels, it usually means how I facilitate you feeling sexual energy in your body, and then that sexual energy container happens and we work within that realm. So we share sexual energy. It doesn't mean anyone's even naked or certainly not making love physically. Certainly, that for me is a very slow process. But when you've worked in a group of people with different races with sexual energy, there's something tremendously healing that happens. And then when you relate to people just day to day at the office or at the shop from a different race, it's different because we've moved through something. It's just because, and when we're able to receive people from different races, their stories, their narratives about sex, whether that's their beautiful stories or their abuse stories or whatever it is, you meet them on a whole different level. And just to bring it home, say now you meet someone you're interested, you're attracted to, and you're having dinner and you're chatting or you go for a walk or whatever you're doing, and you meet them on that level. And then at some stage you decide you're going to make love to them. when you make love to that person for the first time, you meet them in a whole new way. When we have sex with someone, we meet someone in a way we've never met them before. And in the tantric approach, when you share sexual energy with someone, it's like a love making, even if you're not even touching. It's like making love. And suddenly you meet them like you've never met them before. And it could be a group of men and women of different races, creeds, colors in the room, you know. And suddenly we all meet each other in a new way. And that heals us on a fundamental level, and it shifts things. And suddenly a curiosity, when you realize, when you make love, you're exchanging information. So if you're always making love to white Afrikaans men, you're going to get that lineage and only that lineage. Suddenly you make love to a Arabian man or woman, or whatever it is, your preference. And suddenly, wow, you're getting information you've never, and it will astound you. So in a way, our interest in making love can open to different groups, not just because we pass some apartheid conditioning or something, but because it's a selfish thing. I want to know about the mystical ancient lines of the Arabic, you know, or whatever it is, the Indian or whatever, you know, or the African. So that it's quite a profound insight to see what can happen in the realm of lovemaking. So that's just a little bit of it's almost like an encouragement to.
Yeah, I love that, because it's a like I see in visions, right? I see in pictures, and I realize what it was, that where my preference lies is because I know white men. I don't know any other race. And it's not I don't want people to feel I don't want other race men to feel rejected, but I am rejecting them. I am, because of my fear of the unknown. So I'm not rejecting them based on a personal attack or whatever on a person, but the bias that not the bias, but there is a bias, but the barrier is my fear. Fear of what will happen to me if I open that door. That's like the core kernel of am I safe? Am I safe to open up that door, and what will happen to me once that door's open? So I think I'm going to go sit with that. I'm going to really journal, and I'm going to dance with that and meditate with that a bit and see. I can feel it like right in my core, like constricting and feeling very uncomfortable. But I'm very grateful for the way that you put that, because that's really beautiful, like sharing stories, you know, and sharing information. And I've loved the series Goop with Gwyneth Paltrow and all of them. They were speaking about the 5 different types of sexuality, and one of them being energy. And I get that. I get that energy, that the tantric lovemaking is an energetic exchange. So there would be I love that. I love the. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll go and I'll work with that.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. You really did. The essence of our apartheid, or anywhere in the world where racism or racial division has been a foundation, like even in the US, but in South African context for sure, the foundation of our division here is fear. And there's fear around sex as well, a lot. And then there's fear around different race groups. Like I just don't know so many Black people, and let's say, and there's just fear, and then it's just like a barrier, and it's not a one-way street. I have to just tell you, it's also very much coming from the person, the opposite, let's say Black person, holding fear, because there was so much conditioning in the apartheid that if you mess with a white person, you're going to be in so much shit, and there were causality that were, there was, jail and death and all kinds of things happen. So there's a lot of fear conditioning around a white person in South Africa. So there's a fear field, not just from you, but between us, that somehow through consciousness we don't have to, but we like to try find a way past that, slowly and softly and gently.
Yeah, and I can still, this is the space that I'm holding right now, is that I can move through that fear and go, okay, I don't need to be scared, but that doesn't now need to mean that I'm going to go now look for a multiracial partner. But it's just like looking, conscious sacred sexuality for me is about looking at the narrative, the story that I tell myself about my own sexuality and how I decode what's happening in the world as a mirror, and what parts of my own sacredness is being fed to me that is still wounded, or beautiful and healed and amazing. So just feeling into that space of because I mean, even in my life, if we take a dive to the left, even in my life around trauma and how trauma has informed my life, has been such an incredible teacher for me. It's been obviously like heart-shatteringly painful, but it's also, I've allowed it to come as a teacher. For a long time, I remained a victim to it until I decided to start healing it and start allowing trauma to inform the internal narrative and how I want to shift that. So you and I first spoke about trauma and dating, and you said something really interesting to me about premature endings or premature ejaculation and the trauma that is experienced in the feminine if it's the masculine that prematurely ejaculates or prematurely ends. So I would you like to discuss that? I think that was a really because the disappointment is heavy, like when it happens. Like when you said it, I was like, oh, like it is a thing, you know, like I have permission to say, like, that really sucks. And it doesn't mean they suck, you know, my partner sucks. It's just that feeling really sucks, where like there's this crescendo of excitement and wantingness and curiosity, and then it ends. And I'm sure men experience that as well. But if we speak to more about energies as opposed to gender.
So I just want to, if you don't mind, I call it spiraling. I like to spiral into things. You were asking different questions earlier, and then that gets touched and just wants to come out a little bit first, and then we can come into that if that's okay. And what's behind. So you spoke about sacred sexuality in dating. You asked, that was a question earlier, and now we've come to premature endings. So just want to go on a little journey before we get there. So first off, sacred sexuality in dating, I mean, it's a beautiful topic. I don't think it exists at all yet. In most contexts, it doesn't exist. It's not there. It doesn't exist, which is itself is traumatizing. I feel like on the planet we're in evolution. We'll be moving from one state of awareness to another around sexuality, power dynamics such as patriarchy and so forth. So we're in flux right now, and that's always in itself a traumatizing time, because there's a lot of death that happens. And even though we may want to have a period post-patriarchy, there's parts of patriarchy that we actually enjoyed, or that we're familiar with, or that is what we know. And so it's a traumatizing time when we're going through flux, which I suppose we're always in flux, but at the moment I think it's an extra strong time. So before we get to premature endings or ejaculations, I feel what ties into that, especially in the world of dating and trauma, is rejection. So when I was exploring a bit of the apps around dating, or exploring that world a bit, or just exploring the relations between men and women in general, and you spoke in our pre-chat about ghosting, and I feel that rejection and premature ejaculation are quite tied in, actually, or premature endings. That what I notice on the path of dating is, first off, people have their list of what they want. And you mentioned one, okay, who I relate to, who I feel resonant with in terms of race. There's a resonance. I know this group of people, let me keep on with that, right? So that's one. But it can also be, of course, their social status, their financial status, how they look like, their age. There's so many things we have, and then there's certain qualities of character and so forth. So we have like a list of things. And of course, when you're on a dating app, all you really get is a little photo or two, and then what they present. And most people don't actually present their wounds. They don't go like, what, I've been through all these relationships and I'm like terrified of opening my heart. If I can just come in and have some quick sex and be out of there, that's what I'm safe enough to do. That's where my safety is actually. And the woman's going, well, maybe not all women, but some women, maybe I'm safe to wait like a year before I have sex, and then maybe I'll have there's this terror around rejection, and it's almost like what I found. Most people are trying to see if their list is going to be fulfilled before they even want to meet, and then they're terrified of like, wow, this is how I look like on camera or on a photo, or this is how my voice sounds like, but when you meet me in person, geez, I might look older, I might look fatter, I might, I've got all these things going on that you can't see, I'm not putting that photo up, I might be having a bad hair day or something. And there's this terror of being rejected from both, and you can feel that in that field just before you even go on the date. And then it feels like people go way too fast, too quickly. Like you're talking about sharing really intimate photographs of each other, or expecting to get to kissing and sex like really quickly, sometimes just as you meet or really soon. Or there's that instant rejection, like meet you and they just sum you up and no, you don't fit my picture, and I do that and you do that and they do that, and we know we're going into that field of like, I'm going to get rejected just because you don't like that I've got a grey hair, or that I'm the wrong weight, or that you are shorter than you look on your photo or something, if I'm the woman, all of it would say, or, something about your energy, or so the rejection field is so strong. And I think it just even, it stops us from entering it before we begin. It's like, that I don't want to be rejected, or I can feel it, or, it stops the game really quickly, because we've got such a particular idea of what a human being should be like, so that I can love you. I will only love you or like you if you meet some stupid fucking, idea in my head. And it's getting tired. Like no one. You're a galaxy. I'm a galaxy. I'm a vast being. You're a vast being. Every human being is vast. If they begin to search inside themselves who they are, there's a vastness to who we are. And then you're going to come along, I'm going to come along, and I'm going to say, unless you like ABC, I'm not going to give you the time of day. So just that mindset in myself, in yourself, in whomever we're relating to, whether it's a friend or a potential partner, lover, whatever, that has to be checked, man. It's like this little indulgent child who's going, I'm only going to have a good day if I get my little doll with the red dress on, otherwise I'm going to have a tantrum. I want my doll with the red dress. If I don't get my doll with the red dress, I'm having a tantrum right now. That's a 2-year-old, 3-year-old mindset. If it's not exactly how they want it, they have that full-on tantrum. That's how people are dating in the world. And they're even being encouraged to do that by magazines. Get your list, envision your perfect partner. And people go, I envisioned my perfect partner. And guess what? They came along. It's such nonsense. Because, then you actually get to know them, and they're not that. They're actually a human being, and they have wounds and flaws and challenges, and sometimes they love you, and some days they just don't want to be around you at all. And it's like that for everybody. And I think we just need a more mature approach to being, I'm a human being with vastness, you're a human being with vastness. I can't come with my list, expect you to be like this, otherwise I won't be your friend. We got to get past that narrow mindset.
I love that you've brought that up. Thank you. Number one is that I've heard that call on an energetic cellular level, and am now putting together festivals for singles where people can meet face to face. I think the online dating, there's a place for it, but I would like the people I'm speaking to are going, Lee, I really miss I miss meeting people in person, and I'm creating these festivals where it's really about singles coming and celebrating life. It's not necessarily about picking up somebody or dating or anything. It's just like, come, let's just play. Let's just come, and that galaxy that you speak about, that vastness of who we are. I think with it, when we're playing and we're connecting to that curious, excited energy of, and the child, the playful child, then we're connecting to our real sacredness. And then to meet somebody on that level feels more wholesome. So I love that you speak about that we're galaxies, and that we're so much more expansive than what dating apps like push us through a funnel. The other thing that you brought up I love is that we all have a wounded child, inner child. We've all been wounded through rejection or abandonment of some kind of way. And I learned that whilst I might be an orphan and I'd been abandoned and rejected as a child, my God, how many fucking times I've rejected myself and abandoned myself, and the wounding in that has almost been more profound than the wounding of the original abandonment. So yeah, I mean, I think that the trauma of meeting somebody else's inner child and throwing that tantrum and going, well, you're not on my list, you know, you're not like you said, like the doll with the red dress and the, you know, there's a discomfort that lies in intimacy that if we just touch on it, I'm sure a lot of us prefer to push it away and go, ooh, this is sticky. Ooh, this is uncomfortable. Ooh, I don't want to do this. But I think that when we normalize, and I'm assuming this is the work that you do, when we normalize discomfort and we speak about the discomfort, that's actually what brings us closer together and creates intimacy. Esther Perel talks about, she's a famous relationship coach, and or relationship therapist. Actually, she's a research psychologist. Is she a research psychologist? She's
from Mexico, I think.
Esther Perel. She's Belgian. Anyway, and she speaks about totally lost my train of thought now.
Intimacy.
A conflict creates intimacy, or can create intimacy. And when I was like, wow, okay, let me look at how, and I don't mean violence creates. She doesn't mean violence creates intimacy. She means conflict. It's a very different thing to it's been so amazing chatting to you. I feel like I could chat to you for hours. In fact, I'm gonna get off this call. I'm gonna give you a call, and we got to go and have lunch, because I think the work that you're doing is so beautiful, and I in some ways I'm quite glad that there isn't a sacred consciousness around dating, because maybe this is the birthing of that. Maybe this is the offering where we're saying it might not be like that, but it can be, and it doesn't have to stay unconscious, friction orientated objectification, but where dating can become something quite beautiful and real. I mean, it is real. It's real hard work. So I feel like we can have so many different conversations, and I'd love to invite you back on the channel to come and chat to us. Is there anything you'd like, one last thing that you'd like to leave with us?
Maybe a few more minutes. I know you like to have, but there's so much you've brought in, and then you've had another question, which I promised I'd come back to. So then if I don't, I'm going to feel...
Go for it.
Okay. I just want to first say I absolutely love, and like you say, you think in pictures, but I think you also put pictures out there, this image of the singles festival, where you want people, and now you got this image of the galaxy. Come meet each other's galaxies and just see what it's like, saying like, see what this person's about without thinking what they are to you. Are you my friend? Are you my lover? Are you this? Just meet them as such, and then you bring in this thing, play. Let's play with each other's galaxies. Let's play with my galaxy, your galaxy. And I just really love it, celebrate it, honor it, and I bless it that it will be a success and people will get its magic. Okay, so I just want to say that I'm really excited about it. Actually, I want to hear more. Yeah, and then I just want to come back to that question because it's really on my heart and it's on your heart, and I want to just talk into just if you give me a little segment about the premature ejaculations and endings in relationships. So I just want to give this little piece about this, which is related to rejection a lot. So what I've started to see, trauma, in its essence, is when something finishes too quickly. You know, like if you take the bandage off too quickly, you hurt the wound. If you end something too quickly before the feelings are complete, there's a trauma in it. Like when someone dies suddenly and you didn't expect it, there's more trauma than maybe when it's a slow old age death, which can be traumatic as well. But that sudden death, that sudden ending, that's traumatic, you know, and that leaves scars. And scars create inflammation. Inflammation creates illness, mental, physical, whatever. So there's a little, you know, piece on trauma. So premature endings, and we can take it into its physical manifestation in sex as premature ejaculation, or when one of the partner feels the sex ended too quickly. If we can just even move, so whether it's 1 minute or half an hour, someone feels like they weren't finished in the experience. And sometimes it can also be the man, but in this narrative, oftentimes it's the woman, okay? And over time, when that is a pattern in a woman's sexual life, I'm going to talk more from the woman now, being one and having experienced it myself. If every time I go to the journey, the adventure, for me, sex is a journey. It's an adventure. It's not just I want to get my rocks off, I want to have a clitoral orgasm or an orgasm. It's an adventure with someone into myself. Sex takes me into myself, and it's a delicious thing to meet me, and then I meet them too in their selves, right? So it's this incredible adventure journey. And then just as we're beginning the adventure, it ends. And you're like, oh, okay. It's sort of like just as you're about to have this fabulous meal, you take one frigging bite of this delicious feast, and then they take the plate away. And you're like, oh. And eventually, if that keeps happening, you know what's going to happen. You're going to go, I don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat it anymore. And so women get to, let's call it menopause, and they go, oh, I'm not so interested in sex. And they go, it's menopause. No, it's not menopause. They just know what sex is, and they don't want that because it's not so nice, because every time they're just starting to enjoy it. So men get blue balls of the soul when they don't finish their sexual experience. Blue balls, they get blue balls when they want to ejaculate and they can't. Women get blue balls of the soul, you could say, where we haven't had the completion of an experience, which isn't necessarily the orgasm. It's not for us necessarily the orgasm, but there's something in a sexual journey with something, and we know when we've reached that point of, I've reached something in me. The orgasm could be a laughter, it could be tears, it could just be satedness of being touched and felt and entered and met. Okay, so we don't, most women don't get that again and again and again. So it creates a trauma in our body. And these premature endings normally come, let's go to men, from a world where men have not been present. Their fathers have not been present with them. They've been busy working at meetings, making money, trying to take care of the family. It's not a bad thing that the fathers were doing, but they weren't present with their sons. And the sons don't know what a masculine presence feels like because the father was absent. Even if he was in the family, he wasn't divorced or something, but his presence wasn't there. So they don't know, they don't get imprinted on the beauty of masculine presence. Then they come, and there's many ways we can look at premature ejaculation. I'm just giving you one narrative, which is common. They come to the sex and they don't have that presence either. Okay, and then there's a narrative of rejection, and there's all kinds of things going on. So this the conversation I'm talking about is a very big one. It's a very big one, and it could be many books written about it, actually. So I'm just giving a little bit of it and how it creates trauma in dating and trauma in sex. And I just want people to really know premature endings in sex create major trauma in a woman's body, but certainly in a man's body as well. So just to have that knowledge and awareness, to start thinking about it. And then a suggestion, okay? And this is not so much directly about sex. This is another aspect which can then catapult or lead on in causality towards sex. I have a rule these days. Okay, I have one rule. I don't have many rules, but I might have the little middle under ones, little ones, or ones that come about. But I have one rule that I don't break anymore. If you want to get involved with me intimately, sexually, romantically, the beginning The ending needs to be as beautiful as the beginning. You can't just end and then we don't have coffee, we don't talk, we act like we're like some kind of enemy. I'm not in high school, I'm not a child, I'm a woman. If I'm going to open my heart, my body to you, and we're going to go on to a lovemaking journey, and it's really nice and exciting and fun in the beginning, and maybe it gets to a place where it ends, that ending needs to be as beautiful as the beginning, meaning I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to hear your feelings, I'm going to make space for them, and vice versa. I'm not going to like create challenges if you're dating someone, or I'm not going to try to hold on to you, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make space, but maybe we meet once a week or once a month, whatever feels right, or have a chat on the phone, and we end it beautifully. Because when those endings are like, people can't move on. They can't go back into the love field and try again and play some more. They're too scared because they know, wow, it's going to end and it's going to be like I gave my heart over, or I gave years of my life or whatever it was, and then bang, it just ends, and they don't, and it just feels like it takes people into feeling truly worthless. And I feel it's part of the war between men and women, and it scars in both directions. And it's part of the rejection narrative as well. Who gets to reject first, who holds the power in rejection, and all that, and premature endings. And that kind of premature ending leads to the wound of premature ejaculation and so forth. So Lisa, you can hear I've got a lot to say and I can talk a lot more, but I just wanted to, it felt like Spirit wanted me to give you this piece today, and you asked for it as well, and I just wanted to honor that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you that you can share your wisdom